Kia ora te whānau, no mai haere mai, and welcome to Headlines and Heartlines. I'm Diana Jensen, your co-host and journalist.
And I'm Whakapaipai Gorgeous, your co-host and psychotherapist, and also Maiena's mama.
We're excited to welcome you to Headlines and Heartlines, the first podcast of its kind in the world.
This isn't just another news podcast. It's a groundbreaking space where we unpack global headlines with a unique blend of journalistic insight, therapeutic wisdom, and a te ao Māori lens.
As a mama-daughter duo, we're bringing something truly one of a kind, conversations that balance the hard realities of the world's news with the human stories and emotions behind them. No other podcast bridges the gap between the hard facts of journalism and the emotional insights of psychotherapy quite like this.
We're also here to foster deeper understanding, not just of the issues shaping our world, but also of how they shape us, creating a space for curious, compassionate people who want to engage with the news in a meaningful way.
Whether it's global headlines or personal heartlines, we'll explore the stories that connect us all.
So, subscribe today and be part of something groundbreaking.
Together, we'll create a space for meaningful and thoughtful conversations that celebrate the power of both the head and the heart. Kia ora te whānau, and welcome back to Headlines and Heartlines. I'm Diana Jensen.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa whānau. Kia ora, I'm Whakapaipai Gorgeous, and welcome to another podcast with myself and the beautiful Maiena, Headlines and Heartlines.
Yeah, it wasn't Heartland. We've been
I've got it written
having
down.
a giggle. So the tongue twister, eh? Heartlands and headlines, heartlines, and yeah. Well, this week is already proving pretty eventful in the news. I feel like every week is pretty, there's always some rich stuff going on. And to kick us off, so just like we always do, we'll start with a quick sweep around the world in headlines. So yeah, do you want to take us away, Mum?
All right. So, stampede at New Delhi railway station claims multiple lives. At least 18 people, including 14 women, died in a stampede at New Delhi railway station on February the 15th, 2025. The incident occurred as thousands gathered to board trains to the Maha Kumbh, and I apologise if I don't know how to pronounce that festival, in Prayagraj. Confusion arose after announcement about a platform change, leading to panic and a deadly surge on a footbridge connecting platforms. Prime Minister Narendra Modi expressed his distress over the tragedy, and an investigation has been initiated to determine the cause.
That's very sad.
Yeah, that's
Actually,
sad.
there's no more deaths there.
Yeah.
And in another news stories, another tragic accident or event where 42 people have been killed after a gold mine has collapsed in Mali. So a gold mine collapse in eastern Mali's Bilali Kotor Dabia commune has resulted in at least 42 fatalities and numerous injuries. The incident, which occurred on February the 16th, marks the second major mining accident in the country this year. The site, reportedly managed by Chinese nationals, experienced a landslide leading to the disaster. Authorities are investigating the mine's operational legality, with Mali, a leading African gold producer, relying heavily on mining, with over 2 million people depending on the sector for income. So yeah, we'll see what happens in that space.
Yeah.
Kind of lends itself back to what we talked about, I think it was last week or the week before, about, I think it was the week before, wasn't it, talking about sustainable practices and mining and, needing these materials for our devices. Yeah.
It is ongoing, and I think the sooner there's much more interaction, that, for that really constructive discussions for the best outcomes for the earth, as well as for, us as human communities. So I'm hopeful that there'll be some good outcomes. All right, so suspect in fatal stabbing in Austria had an Islamic terror motive, officials say. On February the 15th, 2025, 23-year-old Syrian man carried out a stabbing attack in Villach, Austria, resulting in the death of a 14-year-old boy and injuries to 5 others. Authorities have identified the incident as an Islamic terror attack, noting the suspect's rapid online radicalization and allegiance to the Islamic State. A local food delivery driver intervened helping to subdue the attacker. The event has intensified discussions on Austria's asylum policies and national security measures. I guess straight up, I want to really state this does not represent asylum seekers. This person may have been a former asylum seeker, but I certainly don't share the view that this is all asylum seekers. And I think it's really important that that is provided from my perspective, working with this cohort.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you would have worked with plenty, when you were in your former role, when you were working for one
I
of
mean, this generally, in my view, is, a young man who's got some views and some ideas and is unable to, regulate rational discussions or input or whatever you want to call it. And this is a terrible outcome. And so this, again, I don't condone his behaviour. No, I do not. However, we have to learn from these events so we can prevention in place so we don't have to intervene.
And I think it also lends itself, and unfortunately, I think that whole far right rise in anti-immigration and things like that, it just fuels that even further, right? It's a terrible, it's always a terrible for something like this to happen, but given the current climate and, political environment in a lot of different countries with that sort of anti-immigration stance, I would imagine that's probably fueling those conversations even more so. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Sad. And in a little bit more of a upbeat or interesting story, the headline was "Isolated Indigenous Man makes brief contact with outside world, then returns to tribe in the Amazon rainforest." So, a young man from an uncontacted Indigenous tribe in Brazil's Amazon rainforest approached the riverside community of Bela Rosa along the Purus River on February 12th. Barefoot and wearing a loincloth, he carried wooden sticks, possibly seeking fire. Villagers attempted to assist by demonstrating a lighter, with officials from Brazil's Indigenous Affairs Agency, FUNAI, arriving and providing him with food before he returned to the forest. Health professionals were dispatched to ensure that he wasn't exposed to diseases to which isolated tribes lack immunity. Yeah. Brazil's policy focuses on protecting these tribes by establishing monitored areas rather than initiating contact. So, really interesting that, this has happened, and maybe he's come out of the rainforest and just been like, I'm going back in.
It's quite refreshing, though, isn't it, that he's got the opportunity to, be informed about, or to some degree be informed from his perspective about what's out there, but has the option to choose that he will remain back where he belongs and that he's respected for that. So I'm really pleased that, the Brazilian government communities respect that. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, it's great, to hear that that's something that they actually, focus on, and they do have measures in place to help protect them from being, exposed to disease and things like that. That's great.
Yeah. All right, so moving on. Shakira cancels Lima concert after being hospitalized during global tour. First of all, I need to let everyone know that I'm not fluent in Spanish or many other languages for that reason, so forgive me now about pronunciation. On February the 16th, Shakira was hospitalized in Lima, Peru, leading to the cancellation of her scheduled concert at Estadio Nacional that evening. The singer was admitted due to abdominal issues as reported by local media. This event is part of her La Mujeres Ya No Lauren World Tour, which commenced on February the 11th in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. The tour is set to continue with performances in Barranquilla, Colombia on February the 20th. I wish her all the best. I hope her puku is going to be okay. She's got a great little body, and she's, encouraged me over the years to just shake it and let it go. And I could give her a run for her money, but I choose not to.
Yeah, she's got, what was that song? Hips Don't Lie. I think that's her song, eh?
Yeah. So I can endorse that because my lips.
Yeah, you could definitely give her a run for her money.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully, wishing her all the best, and hopefully she's okay.
Yeah.
That wraps up our quick headlines as part of our first part of our kōrero. And now we're moving on. We've only got two stories this time, but I think we'll probably be able to go quite in depth with these because they are quite significant stories. But before we get started on that, I just wanted to turn back to last week's episode where we talked about the Kiwi Burn Festival, which at the time there were a whole lot of stories coming out about. There was a public sex act and people masturbating and stuff like that in front of young children. And according to some people who were there, they're sort of claiming that that was blown out of proportion and that wasn't actually the case. So it's kind of a case of he said, she said kind of now. So I'm not quite sure, where that's at the moment. I think it's still being investigated, but I did have some people reach out to me who attended who said that, so following reports of inappropriate behaviour, including public sex acts and masturbation, possibly in the presence of children, festival organisers were urging witnesses last week to provide details. However, many participants who were at the festival reported that there weren't no such incidents. So there was a quote on RNZ of a man called Andrew Cook, who was a regular attendee who acknowledged isolated instances, but emphasized that organisers prioritised maintaining a safe, family-friendly environment. So, I think it's just under investigation around these allegations, and we'll see what of it. But interesting, eh? It's quite a big leap to go from, I could understand. I still feel like a whole lot of naked adults running around in front of kids might be a bit. Maybe it's fine, but it might be a bit like, whoa, okay, what's going on here for the children? But to go from just having, naked people to claiming or alleging that they were doing the other things, that's quite a big leap, like to go from that. So, it'd be interesting to see what comes of that. But I just wanted to put that on the table and flag that there had been counter claims, I guess, that didn't happen and that was just blown out of proportion. So, we'll see what comes of that and keep everybody posted.
I too agree that, we're not here sitting and, putting out that this is what has actually happened. We're only going by what the informed information that's been put through to us. So, most certainly if there's a change of the narrative, well, then we need to have a look at that as well. And I agree. We need to sit back now and wait to see what that investigation actually brings out. But overall, I probably will still agree with the sense that adults can behave like adults. Adult behaviours and activities should not include children as such. So there's that very clear boundary that needs to be identified.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. I feel like if I think about it, if it was our girls, I probably wouldn't feel comfortable having them in an environment where all of a sudden there's like a heap of naked adults running. I think they'd just be like, what is going on? Like it's not something that they're exposed to in their everyday lives. It would be pretty, well, I think if anything, they would just be laughing, to be honest. They would just be like, what's going on?
Yeah, I think so too. Be like, why are they wearing their pants?
They'd be like, oh, gross. But I still think probably,
I would agree.
In shock. Yeah. So we'll keep everybody posted on how that's progressing. So moving on to our first big story, and it is big news. It's been making headlines all around Aotearoa, and it seems like it's also, like you said, it's been reaching Australia at least. I'm not sure around other parts of the world.
Yes.
But on the 15th of February, Destiny Church members disrupted a children's event at the Te Atatu Community Centre in West Auckland, part of the Auckland Pride Festival. So around 50 protesters wearing Man Up T-shirts stormed the venue, which led to verbal and physical assaults on staff and attendees. As a result, a 16-year-old girl suffered a concussion during the incident, and it's led to a whole lot of, I guess, like very obviously upset responses, people enraged by this behaviour. And I guess to like Destiny's Church, is all about helping, as far as I'm aware, through their Man Up programs, it's about helping domestic violence, victims and men who are involved, or men and women, trying to help them heal and, behave in a peaceful manner. But then you see them going in and behaving like this, it kind of completely contradicts, what they are alleging that they're trying to spread as their message. Destiny's Church leader, Brian Tamaki, is reported to have expressed pride in the protesters' actions, claiming he encouraged them to storm the library. and but yeah, obviously it's created a lot of outrage and, people who are very, very upset and I guess traumatized too by the event. It was pretty confronting to watch and see them just, storm in there. And I think a lot of, Māori as well feeling really like, that doesn't represent us as Māori, like that kind of kaupapa. It's using, our language and culture to kind of behave in that way. There's no mana in that a lot of people feel. So yeah, so police investigations are ongoing, but it kind of lends itself to, I guess, there is a lot of, growing tension between conservative groups and LGBTQIA+. I think that's the whole lot of it, isn't it? Events not only here in Aotearoa, but, around the world, especially when we see what's coming out of America. But yeah, I saw a post from, I think he was the Young New Zealander of the Year, Chanel Lal, and he said, the facts tell us that between 1990 and 2022, at least 20 church leaders have been convicted of indecently assaulting, molesting, or sexually abusing children. Youth group leaders to senior brothers and fathers are convicted pedophiles. The most recent addition would be Destiny Church's very own Kiwahami Tamati Edward Hamiora Tehira, who has been found guilty of sexually assaulting multiple children, yet no one can find any drag queen or king with a criminal record of abusing children. So the reality is that children are safer with drag queens in public libraries than with the clergy behind church doors. He says if Bryant is concerned about safety of children, he should protest outside his own church because the call is coming from inside the house. So yeah, that was there's a lot of people echoing the same sentiment, and I would have to agree. I feel like their behaviour was awful and really scary and dangerous and putting so many people's lives at risk there. And I don't agree with it either. But yeah, to hear your thoughts on.
So I've worked with quite a few men in the past who have been through different stages of the Man Up program. And the ones that I've worked with who have completed, and I'm not 100% correct on the length of it. I think it was up to 13 or 16 weeks, this particular program. So you had to commit to going and being actively participating in this sort of workshop every week for that period of time. And from what I was taught by these men was that they had a real strong connection, first of all, to establish their ownership and being accountable for their actions. The men that I did work with found enormous benefit in recognizing their worth and their value, even after going through this really violent period of their life. And were in no means saying, I'm not great yet, but I'm on the way to learning how to, effectively regulate, understand emotions, feelings, actions, and behaviors. And so the benefits I saw from most of the men that I have worked with in the past, and it's probably been over 5 years ago since I've had any interactions with these type of men, were quite beneficial. The one thing that I think was always often discussed was where to after the program. And my understanding was that they were expected to, continue to support this avenue and be active and participate, to effectively, when other men, or the sense of recruiting other men who had police involvement or had been through jail systems because of their ongoing violence, when these men were effectively connected with this organisation to do the Man Up programs, the men that had finished the programs were expected to support these new people, these new males, to keep these programs running and have consistency. And there is a great deal about the Man Up program which I found to be really beneficial. And there's a large component to it which I always would bring up around the awareness of completing this program. You are not going to just simply be okay. That this has to be a really ongoing growth of learning, self-reflection, and you're going to have hiccups where you're going to, you might go a couple of steps back, But when you can realize how to regulate and how to take ownership for your violence, you can move on. So I saw the benefits of it. What I always had concerns of, and we have been talking, I've spoken with police about Destiny Church in the past, not on grounds of criminal areas, but for those police to be actively more involved in all sorts of church groups and, community events, because we were getting information out of New Zealand about some of the practices that were happening then, some years ago, and the transition to Australia, and particularly in the Gold Coast area. And so having those bodies and different stakeholders involved, so everyone was on the same page about what was going on and who were these people and why they were doing certain things. My understanding of God, and I wasn't raised as a Christian as such, but my understanding, what I take away is that there was this really cool guy called Jesus. And he used to hang out with sex workers and thieves and people that were regarded as, pretty scummy of the local communities. He loved and adored them and would sit with them. And so my take on Christianity is that if this young guy had the time to spend with people and be equal with them, then I think Christianity is a great thing. It seems to me it kind of gets a bit tainted, and that's the worry I think that a lot of us have, that the equality of people no longer exists in these sort of environments that are created. What I also came to understand was that there were many, many people in Destiny Church here in Australia in particular. I can't speak too much about New Zealand, I don't live there anymore, who were within poverty. And turning to the church was a great source of spiritual connection, a great source of feeling that they had hope and that they were valued. But even in their most poorest of poor, they would find some form of finance to give to this church. And I found that to be really interesting because they were so poor. And I always questioned that any church, for that matter, should have open arms and have these people come through and be supported without paying to be supported, if that makes sense. I mean, even if it's $1 as a donation, $1 to someone who doesn't get any money or have, a supply of income, $1 is a lot of money. So I'm very interested and wait to hear from the leaders of Destiny Church as to what their thoughts are. I think it needs to be in a public domain so we all get an understanding as to what's gone on.
I think from the reports that I've seen, I think they feel real justified in their behavior, and they believe that they are doing the work of God by protesting this kind of thing, and that children are in danger of being corrupted or being mistreated because they're being taught or read a book by a drag queen. So I think I think their agenda's pretty clear. They don't believe in that. They don't believe in transgender or transgender rights. So it doesn't seem to have any remorse for what they've done. If anything, I think they feel that they are God's, what's the word? Not God's angels, but God's warriors or something like that. And they're the ones that are bringing, trying to correct the wrongs of the world and things like that. So, yeah, but pretty shocking. And yeah,
it is. I mean, when this news came about, and I had discussions today in my particular work environment, members of the gay and lesbian communities already knew because the links have been forwarded to Australia, and there is concern, but what I found to be very, very warming was that they will continue to care for one another, and they will continue to spread love and kindness. But in 2025, we still have a way to go, don't we, to be really comfortable with everyone's uniqueness. And I think that's something that, your generation, and, your children's generation, my mokos, people of my age, we have to get better at doing this. We have to have the kindness to walk amongst whatever communities you're in and to just have that respect. Uniqueness is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I follow that they are now getting into comedy a lot. I think their name is a lot. What's beautiful human being? What's it? A lot. Made Menon, and they are. I believe he refers to himself as they them. Is a writer and performer, but just such a beautiful human being, and I really enjoy hearing his perspectives on the world. And he's just saying exactly what you're saying. It's all about the parts of ourselves that. Well, I think it's a much bigger kaupapa what he talks about, but he feels like the way that men are not given spaces to emotionally, express themselves, and so in turn they turn that kind of mamai, and they attack things where they see that there is joy and people actually living authentically and being themselves, and when it doesn't really fit into their belief of what a man is, or what's acceptable by society, then that they're an amazing human, and I think they were just touring Australia and New Zealand actually. But there was an update from Auckland Pride too, because there were a lot of videos that went out after the fact that, which were showing what happened both at the library but also during the Pride Festival. And they issued a statement a couple of days ago saying that today our community experienced an unsettling and deeply hurtful disruption at an event as part of the Auckland Pride Festival. We ask our communities not to share videos or images of today's disruption and consider the privacy and safety of our community members. The footage contains distressing scenes, and circulating this material further endanger individuals throughout the event. This incident has affected those present, including Auckland Pride and Auckland City Council staff, and will resonate across the wider community, reminding us of the ongoing challenges we face as Takatapui and Rainbow communities. Our hearts are with those affected, especially those who were harmed. We are aware that such actions could happen again, and we encourage our communities to remain vigilant when organising and attending events. However, we remain resilient in the face of hate and violence. We will continue to provide updates through our own channels, and we ask for your patience and solidarity as we navigate our response. While today has been a painful reminder of imported ideologies and the violence they bring, we remain confident in our community's resilience. Together we stand stronger. So, so anyone who is listening and who has seen the video, because I know I shared a video and then that came out, so it's been all taken down. Really sad that's we have come so far, and yet it feels like we're stepping backwards in time sometimes at the moment. Hopefully the madness will end soon. I have a feeling it won't, but Moving on, this one is really interesting, and there's no English stories available yet, news stories, so I've had to kind of translate it from Danish. But at the moment, there's a bit of controversy around a new documentary called Grønlands hvide guld, which means Greenland's white gold. It's all about. It's a documentary which reveals that over approximately 130 years, the Danish companies and the Danish state has profited from the cryolite, I think, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, mine in Ivitut, Greenland, with the total turnover equivalent to reported to be about 400 billion Danish kroner in today's value. So this substantial sum was generated from the extraction and processing of cryolite, a mineral essential for aluminium production. The documentary highlights that during World War II, the United States also benefited significantly from Greenland's resources, with American companies profiting similarly from the mine. These findings have sparked discussions about the economic relationship between Denmark and Greenland, and have raised questions about the distribution of profits and the historical impact of resource extraction on Greenland's development. So the documentary, has highlighted this kind of dynamic, and it's also sparked debate about Greenland's historical economic relationship with Denmark and the US. And puts things into perspective when you see Donald Trump talking about wanting to take over Greenland, because it is sitting on a whole lot.
Makes sense,
Yeah,
doesn't it?
when you hear this, it really does make sense.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
one of the experts that was interviewed in this documentary, Naya Duondom Dalgaard, argued that Denmark benefited more than previously acknowledged, questioning the narrative of Greenland as a financial burden, because that's sort of been the narrative, as far as I'm aware, that they back to Greenland each year to help support them, because they colonized Greenland and then have been, I guess, helping to financially support them. But then when you hear about what's been going on, how much have they been supporting them, or how much have they been benefiting from what they've been doing? It's also sparked more corridor around Greenland wanting to become a sovereign state. So Prime Minister Mette Egeril, I don't know how to pronounce, has been expressing a desire for Greenland to become fully independent from Denmark, aiming to remove colonial shackles. And the desire for greater autonomy and self-governance is growing within Greenland. And as I mentioned before, like the geopolitical implications. So the US interest in Greenland, particularly under President Donald Trump, has added complexity to the independence debate. And yet Trump has expressed interest in Greenland's natural resources and strategic location, further complicating its sovereignty. So yeah, really, really interesting. But what sort of, I guess, happened as a result of this is that a lot of some Danish politicians have fired back, and some from the Danske Folkeparti, which is like a very conservative, far right Danish party, political party, saying that $400 billion number is inaccurate, and how can you trust the documentary when they're, not sharing the facts accurately? And so there's a whole lot of debate raging about that. So it's kind of taking away from the actual issue and now focusing on that part of it, which I also find really interesting. Yeah, it's so interesting when you see what's going over here in Aotearoa and with the Treaty Principles Bill, and also, for Indigenous Australians as well, wanting more sovereignty. And yeah, interesting times.
I guess it's looking at Greenland has the right to be Greenland, doesn't it? And however that looks, colonization from the Danes has been acknowledged and recognized, and easy for me to sit here and say, what's the challenge in letting Greenland own Greenland and be Greenland? So it is, I think, a form of discussion that would be really, really difficult, I think, and quite sensitive in Denmark.
I think it's extremely sensitive, and I think because, Denmark's always upheld this kind of reputation for having a really good, human rights legacy and being humane. But when you see some of the things that have happened over the years, like there's more and more reports coming out from Greenland around some of the behavior of, governments and things like that. For example, was to have contraception. So there was this period of time where the Danish government was inserting basically, what are they called? IUD. So there's this whole generation of Inuit women who were forcefully made to, without even understanding what was going on, they were just taken to a room one day and had this thing put inside of them. And some of them hadn't even had their period yet. So, 12, 13-year-olds. So pretty traumatic. And then nothing was talked about afterwards. So this whole generation of women who had these devices put inside them, and that's only sort of just coming out now in recent years. There's been a big investigation. I believe it's still ongoing into that practice. And there has been an apology, as far as I'm aware, from the Danish government. Let's see what happens, I guess.
Okay. All right, should I move on to the positive story for our last little piece of kōrero? Okay. Solar could lift 1.2 million UK families out of fuel poverty. A new report by the Resolution Foundation suggests that installing solar panels on lower income households could help 1.2 million UK families escape fuel poverty while supporting decarbonisation. The think tank estimates that solar power could cut energy bills by up to 25% for poorer households. It urged the government to provide means-tested grants or loans to cover installation costs, ensuring fair access to the benefits of the net zero transition. The UK's feed-in tariff, which previously incentivized solar adoption, ended in 2019. My goodness, this would be wonderful for those families. I hope it gets up and gets sort of the push to get it into action.
Definitely.
That would be amazing.
I think we're going to be seeing more and more of this actually, I think we were thinking we would. And now with all of what was it we reported last week, most of the countries didn't meet their targets, climate change targets. Now, the US and stuff pulling out, then I wonder about this now because a lot of them are like, no, we're not going to be a part of that anymore. So yeah, it's interesting to see green energy and that kind of thing, I think is still going to be a major player in terms of the economy. But I do wonder if that's been halted now because of what's coming and Trump's sort of views on that. So yeah, but that story came from positive.news. So we'll share the link for that. But yeah, it's a great initiative, and yeah, hopefully, like you said, it'll be something that can be rolled out because it would be absolutely beneficial. Well, I think that's us for tonight. Thank you very much for everyone for listening. And for anybody listening, yeah, we do appreciate your feedback. We did get some feedback from last week's session and last week's episode rather. And so, yeah, that's really cool because that brought to our attention the update in that Kiwi burn story. So, yeah, anything that like to suggest or give us feedback on, we really appreciate it. And as always, if you would like to send feedback, you can do so by sending us a private message either on Instagram or via Substack, or you can email us at headlines and heartlines. That's all in one, headlines and heartlines @gmail.com. Please go follow us on Instagram, on YouTube, on Substack, and I think that's it, isn't it? Yeah, that's our performance for now. So goodbye. Yeah, have a wonderful week.
Okay. Love you. Take care.